All right. So, hello everyone. Hello. Thank you for coming tonight. This is my first time at MOOCsoft, so thank you, MOOCsoft. Tonight, this is the next part of our series, Gateway to Agile. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Tonight, we're focusing on product discovery, and we're going to define that, and then we're going to actually have a workshop. So what we try to make this, the leaders, which I'll introduce in a minute, there's a lot of co-leaders here, of this community. I don't even call it a meetup, it's a community. The meetup is the distribution channel, getting the communication out. What we think one of the differentials for this community is that we don't want to come up here and pontificate a lot. Unfortunately, I will do some of that. And we want to do workshops. We want to split out the teams and actually do the work and learn and then come back together and debrief and discuss what we learned or what we didn't learn. So that's really what we like doing. This is our, what, fourth one, fifth one?
1, 2, 3. Third one?
Yeah, third one? Fourth one. Fourth one.
Yeah.
Fifth one. Okay, which one is it? 5. All right, 5. All right, thank you. This is our fifth one. We started out at Twitter, and we started out with Dark Agile and high-performing teams. We moved on. We'll talk about that in a minute. I got the whole series up here. So today we're at the whole product world, the design thinking world, and the MVP world. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight. So is everyone in the right room? Cool. So again, thank you, MOOCsoft. The future of IT operations and DevOps. So I did look at your software online and everything. It's cool. So a gentleman's going to come up here in a little bit and do a demo, which is fantastic, and kind of walk you through their product. And then we're going to go forth. So this is my ugly mug. So I'm an ex-IBMer of 16 years retired. Notice that I'm really retired. And then I joined a company called Matrix Resources, which I'll talk about. Nate, is Nate here? He's not here. Dang it. So Nate helped me put some of the scenarios together tonight. He's one of the senior Agile coaches at Twitter. He's part of the co-leader team. Also on the team here, we have Rob Trivietti sitting in the back. We have Larry Apke sitting right here from Oracle. We have Ron, I put you on the list, you didn't know that. So Ron MT sitting right here. Is Arun here? No. Andrew Grutza from First Republic Bank, he's on the co-leading team. And I think I'm going to invite Joseph Barges to participate too, even though he lives in Chicago and he works for Cognizant. But he'd be a great asset. This is Matrix. I don't want to spend a whole lot. Oh yeah, you can't see this. I'm standing right in front of it. Yeah, I'm a great host. All right. So this is Matrix. We're 33 years old. We're privately held, about $240 million company. Top 25. We focus on providing, staffing. We also have a professional services group. We also have an Agile national practice. I'm one of the heads of the Agile national practice. So that's Matrix. We have offices throughout the United States. We have offshore delivery service, and we have nearshore delivery service. I want to thank Twitter. Does anyone know who this young man is? Poor guy. He's having lots of fun nowadays. So that's the owner of Twitter. Nate was going to talk about Twitter, but since he's not here, I'll talk about Twitter. No. But they're having fun. Out there, there's a Twitter handle called Dark Agile. That's our Twitter handle for those that want to participate when we get done with the video, which this young man Bill Cumberger is filming. That's where I put it up there, and we also generally do a Periscope. But this time, instead of doing Periscope, we're doing a video, and we're going to stick it up to YouTube. So now, I will introduce this young man back here, Steve Burton, and he's the VP of Product Marketing. Cool.
Just ignore the marketing bit.
So he's going to do a demo of MOOCsoft, so I'll turn it over to him.
So you're probably all wondering, what the hell's MOOCsoft? That's the first thing, and then the second thing you're thinking is, what's all these cows that you keep seeing around here? So I'll spend 10 minutes just walking you through. I'm actually a developer, and I'm kind of good at it, because when I was doing development, I was doing waterfall 10, 15 years ago, and it's all fun now, and it wasn't fun back then. But anyway, anyone recognize this? This is a product called IBM Netcool. It was built 20 years ago by our founders, and they sold it to IBM. This in its time was the most sophisticated monitoring management tool that sat across all the tools that most customers owned. And really what MoveSoft does, it sits on top of your entire monitoring ecosystem. So many of you have tools like AppDynamics, Splunk, New Relic, Dynatrace, and Agios. Most customers have 10, 25 different tool sets, and they're really, really sensitive. Sensitive meaning they do anomaly detection on millions and billions of metrics, and what happens when something goes out of whack is it sends hundreds or thousands of alerts and events in live production environments. And what we do is we consume all those events and alerts, and we use machine learning. I use that seriously because we really do real machine learning. I know pretty much everyone in the Bay Area does machine learning right now, so it's slightly tricky. And then what we do is we use machine learning to understand the relationships of the events across the different tool sets. So instead of getting thousands of events, you get one situation, and we join the dots together so that when you look at an incident, you pretty much know what's going on. And then we synchronize that with tools like PagerDuty and ServiceNow to build a system of record. So that's high level what we do. What the product looks like, it's black, as all futuristic Bay Area company UIs are. You can log in. And what you're seeing here is all the events that MoveSoft is ingesting. The first thing we do is we deduplicate those events into unique alerts. So in many application log files, you get the same class errors, you get the same exceptions that have been there every day, every week, every year. The first thing we do is we normalize, and we learn what's normal and abnormal in an environment. So if you push a new deployment into production and it goes bang, what you don't want to see is all the errors and exceptions that have been in your log files for the last 3 years that are confusing you and taking you down a wild goose chase. So we use what we call entropy, which is unsupervised machine learning, and it scores every event and alert for relevance. Once we know that, what we then do is we cluster unique alerts into what we call a situation. A situation is an incident, it's a ticket that has a group of related alerts. And every time I give a demo, something breaks. So what you're seeing here is the different services within a customer environment. All this is updated in real time. The algorithms work on the fly in memory. It's not done in a database, it's not indexed, it's actually done on the fly, which makes it incredibly fast, which makes it easy to detect. And you can see here, 3 services have turned red. We can go and investigate those services. We have this concept of teams, in a novel concept, I know. We try and map out the team relationships in an environment. So many of you have multiple teams. Big enterprises can have hundreds of teams. And we build like a Facebook or a Twitter feed wall of situations that relate to every team. So a classic example is where you have multiple application teams and someone changes something on a firewall and then suddenly everything stops. The network team made a change, firewall goes down, applications stop working, everyone troubleshoots the app, and the firewall's the issue. What we want to do is expose the situations to the teams that are impacted versus telling everyone and having everyone on a bridge call. Second bit is we have a Kanban board. Again, here's all the situations that get created. We have open, assigned, in progress, and resolved. So really simple for teams to immediately see what's new and unassigned. So I can go and take ownership of that particular, and it moves to in progress. I can see a NAS cluster is offline in US Data Center 1. What I can do is I can drill in, and now I'm in a situation room. This is telling me a minute ago, a NAS cluster's offline. It's impacted commerce, social storage, and web services. These are the applications. It's been assigned to the DevOps team. There's 17 alerts within the situation. So it's correlated what it's seen. And the first thing it's done is it's looked for situations that we've detected in the past that are similar. So many of the issues you see in your live environments will have happened in the past. A firewall change, a storage array goes down, a database failure. And so we use machine learning to blueprint past situations, and then we use them to early detect ones we're seeing right now in real time. And the great thing with detecting past is we can replay the knowledge that we captured when we last troubleshooted the situation. So in a simple click, I can see there's a 58% similarity match that's happened in the past, and someone's inputted a resolving step as part of that process. there's a firmware bug, there's a script, reset NAS, that we can run. And so before I kind of run that script, what I can do is I can go to the timeline view, and I can see the sequence of events when it started all the way to the end of the incident. And so if a storage array goes out, what might happen is the database goes with it and all the applications that connect to the database, and you just get this storm of alerts. And so what we effectively do is piece that together so you can see immediately what happened. You can drill in and look at each of the events. We can even cross-navigate. If you've got tools like AppDynamics, Splunk, Nagios, you can cross-navigate in the tools as well. So we're not trying to replace what you have, we're just trying to streamline how you can detect and troubleshoot. So here, I've got a tab called Collaborate. This is native chat ops capabilities. We can integrate with Slack, but you can communicate here. The teams are all invited. Here are the users, and I can type in comments, I can post images, I can put in information. I can even run a script on any server. So the great thing about chat ops is I can actually execute and remediate on the fly. So I can go ahead and run a script. In a few seconds, you can see the tools are successful, and all my services have magically gone back to normal. Here's all the alerts. I can see they've all gone to clear. I can see descriptions, active situations. And then I can go back to Collaborate. I can mark the resolving step. And lastly, when I close, it asks me to give the situation a rating. And this is another machine learning feedback loop. It learns what the operators are doing using the product. So the algorithms are watching who's using the product, which situations are open, and how people use the situations. So if I rate this 5 stars, what's going to happen is it's going to go back to the algorithms and reinforce it with feedback, saying next time I see those sequence of events, that's a real situation. And guess what happens if I ignore the events? The algorithms know that that situation is irrelevant, and that again feeds back into the algorithms. All the information within a situation, the resolving steps, the troubleshooting is all captured and packaged up, and that's synchronized with PagerDuty and ServiceNow. So we're not trying to replace anything, we're just trying to coexist and streamline everything. And that's what Microsoft does. That's all we do. Some of our customers is like Blizzard Activision. Don't know if you're a World of Warcraft environment. We've got GoDaddy, Yahoo. Typically it's big environments because that's where machine learning works. You can't really do machine learning if you've got 10 servers, unfortunately. But that's what we do.
Seems like AWS could have used you a few months ago.
Yeah, and that's the fastest product demo I've done in 8 minutes.
You got questions? You got questions?
So I have a question. So way back at the beginning, you talked about relevance and how you initially looked and see if the alert was relevant or not, and you separated out the history
Yeah.
starting. How do you do that? Do you have like a model, or is it like human?
It's so the algorithms, as soon as it's plugged in, they're watching everything that comes in, and they're looking at time, they're looking at natural language. So we tokenize everything in an event and alert. We look at network proximity, so the IP address, the range, and some other secret sauce that does it. But we're effectively storing everything that comes into the system.
And you said you work with ServiceNow?
We integrate with ServiceNow, yeah. Success factors is another, yeah.
I have 2 questions. That's
Yeah.
the first one is the rating that you had there. Is that rating maps to the relevance of the issue?
It does, yeah. So the operators, the more the operators use the product, the more the product learns what's relevant and not relevant. So it's,
And the second question, it's just out of curiosity, does your system also records what steps has been taken to address the issue so it can be used as a training data set?
yeah, good question. So the Collaborate tab you saw there, any team and any user can actually type and chat, like you're on Facebook or you're on NIM, and it records everything. So it'll record the entire thread and dialogue. Then at any point you can check anyone's comment, said this is the resolving step, and then it knows that that's the root cause.
But these things are not fed back to your reinforcement network.
The root causes, yeah, for sure. So the next time we see that, it's like, we already know it's existed, this is the root cause your team's used, and then...
It doesn't offer the solution.
No. We're working... Pardon?
Version 2.
We're working on probable root cause. the reality is it's really difficult to do. And it requires humans to say these are symptoms, these are causal, and then every environment is different. But yeah, we'd love to get that.
Do you guys have chatbot in that chat feature that you have, or no?
It's chat, yeah, ChatOps is.
I mean, do you have chatbot as well?
Yeah, it's fully extensible. It's got a JSON interface. So if you want to write some remediation or some integration with other systems, you can invoke JavaScript bots whenever a situation occurs.
Okay.
So that's.
Thank you.
You mentioned that it learns how to correct it.
You can have an automated script that you can invoke. It's pretty extensible, yes. We've got 2 customers that do that on the fly. Full automation is still scary for most of our customers, so they typically want.
Does it have to be like 100% match?
Yeah, you can set anything over 90%. Go ahead and do it. For sure, yeah.
Delete all containers.
Yeah. Thank you for your time and enjoy the event.
Thank you. So, thank you very much. So we know more about MOOCsoft now, which is great. And I do resemble the comment he made before with Tivoli. I remember those days. So this is like a leap and bounds forward. So this is Gateway to Agile. This is our series for this year. And the leadership's thinking about what to do next year. We haven't figured it out, so if you have any ideas, send us an email. So what we wanted to do is we kind of wanted to develop this Agile ecosystem, this knowledge kind of pattern. And we thought, well, this is the stuff that we generally think of when we think of Agile nowadays. We generally think of high-performing teams and happiness, Scrum, XP. Today we're going to talk about design thinking and product delivery and product discovery. What's the difference? Requirements decomposition is what we're going to do next. Then we talk about the tech singularity, so the DevOps, TestOps, SecOps, all that cool stuff. And then finally we talk about all the scale, the frameworks and so forth. So that we're going to end up hopefully at Twitter and after that at a party towards the end, and Salesforce will be when we talk about the framework. Okay? And Arun from Salesforce, a couple other people will be talking about that. So today we're focusing on this, design thinking and product discovery. Hence. This is what we're going to do tonight. So I'm going to do some talking about what this stuff is. Then we're going to go off and do a workshop on design sprints. So when we get to design sprints, I'll note it for you all. That's probably when you'll probably want to pay attention more and take notes, because you're probably going to go off and do this stuff, but we're going to have people here to help you. And it's going to be cool. We're going to see, what we all come up with. We're going to have a scenario we're going to pass out. You're going to do these 5 steps, what we generally do in 5 days. You're going to do it in a few minutes. You're going to have 1 hour to do it all, and then we're going to present it and learn from each other, okay, and then talk about it. Okay. So this is the Agile ecosystem. So this is from anyone familiar with Integral Agile or Spiral Dynamics or any of that stuff. So this is kind of came from that thinking. We've kind of added to it, and we're still adding to it today. And what we're saying is that most companies focus on this Agile practices and tools, but they forget about the mindset, the Agile humanity. They forget about the organizational culture and the environment, the safe environment, learning environment. If you don't harmonize these things, you're probably not going to be successful to take your company to that next level of Agile. So today, we're going to talk about design thinking and lean UX and all that cool stuff and product discovery. But I just want to point out that it has connectors into these other areas. We're going to talk a little bit about. Before I do that, I just want to talk about complexity and product discovery. So the whole idea of doing product discovery is to try to resolve complexity and this whole VOCA thing, which is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. It's just the nature of the world today. So Dave Stone, another ex-IBMer, wrote this Canavan framework, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you don't have to really listen to this. This is kind of like setup to get into the detail. So this curmudgeon, and he likes calling himself that. So I'm not saying anything behind his back. He doesn't call himself that. He's a very interesting character. very smart person, and he came up with this notion, which I'll talk about in a minute, which is sense making and sensitive response, and how to deal with complex adaptive systems. This is important because when we talk about design thinking, we talk about sense and respond, and God Health just came out with that. Well, the source of that was the complexity theory and the Canavan method. So this is very simple. The Canavan method is very simple. Simple world. This is where we mostly, a lot of us work in. This is where, you know, if you're doing waterfall, you're doing the same thing over and over, and there's nothing new you're doing, you probably should stick with that. You know, you're doing the same type of engineering efforts, you just keep it very simple. Then we move to complicated, where it gets a little more complicated. We've got to figure out what to do. We do sense, analyze, and respond. Then we do the complexity. Complexity is what a lot of people call the unknown knowns, or the not known unknowns, and all that cool stuff. And complexity, there's a lot of probing, sensing, and experimentation. And then chaotic, you don't want to go there. And the middle is disorder. And then what we find out is every company is somewhere in this circle. If I go to large companies, if I go to one department, they're over here. If I go to another department, they're over there. Innovation centers, where are they mostly? I'm pointing to. They're mostly here, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. That's where design thinking and all that really, really helps. So what's important about design thinking and discovery is innovation and ideas. That's why we do it. We're trying to figure out, you know, what new ideas, what the market wants, what should our new product look like, what does the customers want, and we do a lot of experimentation. So what we're seeing out there now, which is very popular, design thinking is like 15 or 16 years old now. There's Lean UX, it's probably 12 or 15 years. Agile is like 15, 16 years old, right? So none of this is really new stuff. But what's new is that people are starting to hook this stuff together in their organization. And they're starting to figure out what parts of their organization does what part of this model. Does that make sense to people? I mean, are your organizations doing this?
It's dealing with that challenge.
We're dealing with that challenge. It is challenging. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. This is very challenging so a lot of times, so what companies like Wells Fargo, General Electric, Ford, General Motors, what they do? They created innovation centers. So they created a whole organization outside of their organization and said, it's too hard to change my big company over here, so I'm going to create an innovation lab, an innovation center. I'm going to hire a bunch of people. They're going to have their own hardware and environment, so they can just focus on that. And then good stuff will come out of that and make them over here to production and operations. But we'll talk about, maybe that's not the most optimal way to do it. We'll talk about that. Yeah, well, that's what they do right now, right? It's too hard to change the organization, right? Another way to look at it from an innovation perspective is that you can have technical innovation. So MOOCsoft, one could argue that MOOCsoft is a technical innovation. It solves a particular technical problem. It also solves customer problems and market problems. Here are some ideas of how architects can be involved in that, and this is a process that some architects use. I wanted to throw this out there because some of you may use this hardening. When you do Agile with your companies, do you have a hardening iteration or a hardening sprint? Yeah, right. That's generally not best practice, but a lot of people do it. And if it's best practice for you, it's best practice for you.
It's not a best practice.
All right. How about hackathons? Do you do hackathons?
Sure.
Yeah. So I put this in the technical ones because who generally loves to do hackathons? The technical folks, right? I don't see the marketing department go, hey, let's do a hackathon. Right? You generally don't see that. So the big thing that we're seeing now is this customer and product innovation. So that's the movement we're seeing. The movement is customer focus and how we're going to innovate the product. And there's a lot of books about that. You know, Eric Ries is the most famous one. It's been out for a while, Lean Startup, and he has a model. Then Steve Blank has taken that, added to it, and this is a model that's becoming popular where we figure out and we discover with the customer what they want, then we validate with it, and we find out after we validate we may have to pivot and change, and then we do some scaling and execute it and get the company operational right. And then we worry about then scaling the company. Because now we have a million users. How many people watch Silicon Valley? I just wanted to see how many nerds were here. So, just kidding. All right. So, product discovery and lean startup is the big thing here I just talked about. So, what they're really saying is, software is eating the world, and that's important. We now are noticing that people, more and more companies are leveraging lean and agile and design together in a symbiotic relationship to be able to do this customer innovation focus. We'll go into more detail. And the key thing is it's an experimental thing. It's a scientific hypothesis. We'll explore that. And then the Lean UX is how many people have heard of the Lean UX canvas? Cool, we're going to actually talk about that in a minute. And the whole idea there is for us to figure out what the market wants and what the customer wants, and then how we're going to experiment to determine that, and then based on the results of the experiment, what to do with that. And then it's generally a strategy, product design, and engineering are the legs, but this stool could be, the three-leg stool could be used for almost anything. So it's like how many people do quadrants? Consulting favorite tool in the world, 3 or 4 quadrants. If you don't know how to do that, you can't be a consultant. So what's important here is this is what we're about to go into. This whole Lean UX was inspired by Lean Startup. Matter of fact, Gottlieb and all them who wrote the Lean UX and his partner, and we'll talk about that in a minute, Respond, is really was funded by Eric Ries and his books. If you go look at his book and you see the cover of the book of who was behind it, it's Eric. So you'll see there's a lot of similarities in their thinking. So the Lean UX Canvas is based upon Jeff Patton. Started. Anyone know who Jeff Patton is? Cool. So he started the business model canvas. And the whole idea that we all have to do these business cases. So how many people work in a big company? Right. So when you start a project, don't you have to do a business case, and you have to do a budget, and you have to get the senior management to approve it, and hopefully you have some objective portfolio management where they make decisions on how to spend their money. How many companies have a really, truly objective format, or is it really who screams the loudest and who has the most money gets the work done? Okay. So the idea here is that, we want to get on one page, and get a team together in a collaborative way to come up with the business model and how we should spend the money and invest in this, this program or engagement. Then we had an opportunity canvas. So the opportunity canvas was before the business model canvas. So the opportunity canvas is, the marketing people's dream, because it was more like, what's the opportunities out there for the market or for the product or service that we're creating? Is there really an opportunity out there? And what is the customer? What's the demographic? What's the personas? So that's very important. So what Gottlieb did, and he's written a book about Sense and Respond and about the Lean UX canvas. Has a book called Lean UX. And so he took the business model canvas and changed it a little bit from a UX. How many UX people do I have here tonight? Cool. So they're going to want you on the team. So make sure we break out the teams. So this is from a user experience point of view. So they really first start out with what the business problem is. Okay, so we really want to identify what the problem. Some people call it a business opportunity too, right? So what are we trying to solve, right? Because some people don't want to use the word problem, right? So that's what we first do. We document that, we discuss that, and we collaborate on that. Then we say, what are the business outcomes? So what do we want outcome of this if we solve this business problem? Do we want more revenue? Do we want to make the customer happier? Do we want to sell more products? Do we want more customers? Do we want to change the world? That's every company in Silicon Valley. So users and customers. So here's our users and customers. So this is where we do our personas. What our customers are, our users, and our demographic. Then if we have a user and customer, then we should have a user benefit for each persona. So what's the benefit? So what do we want to do here? We want to empathize. We want to get in the customer's mindset. We want to feel and breathe what the customer is experiencing. Does that sound like a user story, maybe? Yeah. And then after we do that, then we kind of brainstorm on what are some of the solution ideas for that, right? So some of you, how many people from banks? Cool. I never seen people from banks. So can you see how you could use this for your customers in banks? So you have internal customers in banks and you have external customers in banks, right? So you would have to do this for those different players in the bank, those different personas, right? So when I look at user benefits and users and customers, I have to make sure I'm mapping those accordingly. Then we come up with solutions. We brainstorm for this persona, these customer set, for that problem, for the benefits, and then the outcomes of those benefits. What are some of the solutions I can create? You're going to do that tonight. We're going to do design sprints tonight, what they do at Google VC, Intuit. Okay? So what they do then, and then they come up with hypothesis. So again, this is a scientific thinking, scientific theory. So I came up with all this stuff. So what's my hypothesis? My hypothesis is if I do this solution, am I going to arrive at the benefit or at the outcome? That's my hypothesis. I don't know if it's true yet, right? Because I haven't run an experiment. Then what's the most important thing when you do? Why do we figure that out? Because the next thing is, what can we run? What's the cheapest experiment? Because you might have a whole list of things, and what do we do when we do product backlogs? We prioritize. We only do the most important thing of the highest value. That's exactly what this is doing. So what do we really have to do from all the solutions we have? So any questions on that? Yeah.
If a team wants to create a lean UX canvas, how much time does it usually take for them to get to that stage?
Depends. I've seen this happen in one day, and I've seen it happen in 3 weeks.
So if new opportunity is coming up, how much time would you recommend to an executive to say that if we do that, how much time will it take to get it done? And how much time can we get an output here that we can look into and start working on?
So it's like everything when we do product backlogs and we do stories and epics. What's the biggest thing we try to figure out is how small do we need to make them? We have to bring it down to the scope that's manageable. So we generally start at the highest level. You might have a set of business problems. When we talk about the business opportunity canvas and the opportunity canvas, you may start there and you have this huge list. Then you'll pick from that list and say, which one's the most discrete that I know the most about? That I can get the executives into a room that has the highest value. Then I work on this. You really want to try to get this done in 1 to 2 days. If it takes longer than that, then you're probably spinning your wheels and you're probably too high a level. Or not discrete enough. Anyone else has any experiences they want to share there?
Step 8 is having a plan to answer a question, but it's not the answer.
Right.
So this shouldn't take so long. It's basically, what is our plan, or how are we going to spend our money? It's not like we spent money and built something by the end of the thing. So I think if I was an executive who's like, my design team's wasting money all the time, I would say, well, I'd like to see something like this because I know exactly what they're going to invest in for the next 6 weeks of product development. At least I know what they're talking about instead of some crap that they have a hard time explaining to me.
Right, and what I've seen this really work really well, so you'll have a big wall, that's a portfolio wall, and you'll have all these investments. And here's like, 100 different investments, we got to spend $100 million. We don't have to. We have $100 million to spend, and and they go through and they say, well, we think these top 3 are the number ones. Well, let's go to this top 1. Let's dig deeper. See what really entails in that, and see if that's right. And let's do an experiment to determine it. Right, that's what the design sprints are all about. We'll talk about that. That's how I understand it. Notice here he talks about sense and respond. This is what this is all about. You're going to do an experiment. You're going to sense the results, and then you're going to respond because you may have to change your hypothesis. You may have to come in and change your solutions. So this is active until you get the result or prove or disprove your hypothesis. Right? So you got to continue this. I'm trying to show there's a relationship between that and the Canavan model because this is where you're at. You're in the sense, and respond, so you're dealing with a complicated world. You're probably not going to do this in the simple world. You know the answer. It's black or white. It's on or off. These two domains, it's where you don't know. You're going to do some experimentation here. Here you do almost all experimentation. So, design. So out of that Lean UX Canvas, what do we first came up with? We came up with an experiment to do. So there is a way to do the experiment, and that is through the design thinking approach. So how many people, I'm not going to read all this, but how many people are familiar with how this started? With Stanford and IDEO. Cool. Cool. And now there's places in the Netherlands, there's places in the UK, there's a place in Boston now where people can go and they get immersed in this, and when they leave that school, that's all they learn is this experiment, how to do design thinking and how to do the UX world. So the UX Lady in the back, were you exposed to design thinking and UX design and all that cool stuff through your education and training?
A little bit. I briefly, I went to an art school and it was more of the design background. So we dabbled into it a little bit.
Right.
It was a long time ago, so.
Right. Yeah, so the most important thing is that you'll see here that there's many schools of design thinking, and IDEO and Cooper are probably the most popular one, and Melville probably. The Frog one is getting more popular. But if you look at them, do you see commonality? They might call them different names here, but do you see there's some basic commonality what they're doing?
The biggest contrast I see to what I heard in Agile for a long time is first you have to think about what you want to do before you start doing stuff.
Right.
Exactly. It looks like we have a conflict already built into this model because how is always in conflict with what. It kind of keeps it on a leash.
Right.
And you might probably try to push your how discussion to the end.
Right.
At the beginning, just unleash your fantasy. Pie in the sky, dream, and only when you dream all the forms, then start thinking about implementation.
Right. And what hopefully you'll notice when I get a couple more slides, what they try to do here is combine the how and the what in integral places. Right now, you'll have to judge whether you agree with that. But again, this is like 15 years old, and many companies have done it successfully, and some not, like everything in life, right? But this is pretty common from the UX side of the house, from the design side. Anyone that's building online stuff or retail world, anyone that's anyone in the Amazon world that's building their Amazon online system and stuff, they have a whole team they just do design thinking. Okay, Google, they have a whole team just does design thinking. Okay, so people that have the user experience manifested by online systems, especially retail, this is a big thing for them, right? Now what's happening also in the medical department, in the medical and health field, this is becoming very popular now, especially in innovation centers. So, I'm going to test this out. No, it's not going to work, but that's okay. I'm going to send this deck to everyone. So what happens at the end of the session today, I'll send an email out to everyone. So watch your email. There's two things on meetups. If your profile you're setting, you have to put in there that you want emails from the meetup, or you're not going to get one, which means you have to go into meetup and see my email. So I always post this link to SlideShare. So this will be posted out to SlideShare that you can go to. So I'm kind of happy I didn't be able to show this. It's 6 minutes, but it's IBM centric. I went and looked, I looked at like 15 videos out there. So what can 5 minutes, tell me what design thinking is. This was the best one, not that I'm biased. So So I picked it, so it's in there, and if you go and go to YouTube and do a search on design thinking video, you'll see this, it'll pop up. But it's a very good video. I think they did a very good job explaining what design thinking, and I think they did a very good job providing concrete examples at companies. This gives us more time to do the workshop. As, you know, you gotta move around. You can't listen to me talk all the time. Okay, we gotta get together and start working. So this is what we're talking about. You know, so you're talking about the what and the how. What we're trying to figure out is in the innovation world, we got to do the what and the how kind of almost simultaneously, not exactly. But we got to figure out how to do it quickly, as quickly as possible, right? So the idea is, you know, in this intersection point on this Venn diagram, you know, where in here can we bring this together so that we can innovate and come up with ideas, and then what technique are we going to use so we can manifest the innovation, so we can test it, so we can experiment and see what the results are, and then change and pivot. So I'm not going to go through this. So this is very popular now, this observe, orient, decide, and act. So when we do this type of work, so anyone know Otis? So Colonel Boyd did this. He was in the military, so he was flying missions, and he was in charge of figuring out how to best deal with active, what do you call that when you combat in the air, war, dogfights, and all that cool stuff. So he came up with a mechanism of how you can train the pilots so they can react very quickly and determine, because there's a lot of instrumentation they have to do, and there's a lot of things going on outside the cockpit. So he came up with this whole training mechanism. This is his training mechanism that he came up with to orient them to be the best fighter pilots possible. And what's happening is that Steve Blank, he wrote a book on parts of design thinking, and some other organizations are taking his model to your point, and he's saying, how fast can we determine the what and the how? Can we observe something, orient, decide, and act as quick as possible, and combine those things? So this is what they are saying now for Lean UX. They're saying they want to make this circle as fast as possible and learn. And at some point in time, you're done with the circle and you go out and you have the MVP. Minimal viable product, everyone knows what that is, right? So this is the whole notion, right? Is to have this and quickly get to the MVP. So, that sounds all wonderful, except, you know there had to be an except, right? There had to be a level of complication here. What's happened over the years is that people did product discovery as a finite set of work, and then they turned it over to product delivery. So the notion was, I would go figure out and do Lean UX Canvas. I'd use, you know, I would go figure out what the market wanted, and I would do this discovery and experimentation, and I'd figure it out. And once I figured it out, I would turn it over to the team over here, and they would build it for real and put it in production. Does your organization do that? Are you familiar with that? Right, that's what.
Do you have a product backlog?
That's what most organizations did. But to be honest with you, when you get here in the sprints and everything, you had a product backlog here, but you didn't have one up here. You know, those people over there that went off and did this stuff, you know, they didn't do Agile back then. They did something different, which we'll talk about here. Right? Now, what's happening is that people are finding out, like Marty Kagan and others, and guys, that they're finding out that some of the high-performing organizations out there that are beating people in the market, you know, beating them like dogs in the market, they're able to do this in parallel. So they'll do some discovery, then they'll flip it over to this, and they'll learn from that, flip it back over to discovery, and then flip it back, and then finally get done and move it to production. Isn't that cool if you can do that? Very few companies can do that very well. If that's the nirvana people are trying to move to, Twitter could do that, right? He's not saying that. Yes, he's saying yes. So, Google Ventures said, wow, what can we do to synthesize product delivery and product discovery? So they came up with design sprints. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to break out into teams, we're going to hand out a scenario, and you're all going to work, and we're going to do a design sprint that takes 5 days and about an hour. Okay? That's right. Well, it's not going to be as hard as but it could be. So it's 2 to 5 days. It's mostly 5 days that they do these. The goal is to take the Lean UX. Remember that Lean UX canvas at the bottom right here that said we're going to do an experiment? I have to figure out what the hypothesis is. I have to figure out what our personas are and what our problem is. Then we had to do an experiment. Remember that? Well, that's what this is. Okay? So we're going into this with some context at the beginning. So now the question is how do we prove our hypothesis? And how do we come up with the how along with the what in 5 days? Everyone with me? All right. And so they call them sprints, right? So this is very agile, right? And so before the sprint, they do some work. Then during the sprint, they do some work. And after the sprint, they do some work. Okay, very simple. And a lot of times they're in this circle. They're just figuring this stuff out. Then eventually they'll get over here and do that and launch when they move to product delivery. I'll put quotation marks there because something could come out of a design sprint and go into launch. Could happen. So this is the process. It's very simple. First, you understand. What do we understand? What do we want? It's a question.
Problem.
Yeah. From whose point of view?
Customer.
Exactly. We've got to empathize. Then we define it. Then we diverge. So now the team goes off, we'll talk about in a minute, and they do some mapping and drawing and coming up with what they think it should look like. It's the what? This is the what? I'm sorry. This is the how. Sorry. And then this is again the how, the prototype. Then validating is very important. Why is validating very important?
You have to see whether you are building the right thing, whether the requirements are
Right.
matching the outcome,
That's right, because I'm not building it for me. Who am I building it for?
or the user.
So who's going to validate it? Exactly.
Always be closing. Always be closing the loop.
That's exactly right. So now we're going to break out into teams. Now we're going to break out into teams the old-fashioned way, like on the baseball team where you get picked. No, so we're going to count by numbers. And how many teams do we think we need here? I want teams of like 5 or 6. So like 4 teams or 5 teams? I think 5 teams. 5 teams is good. So we're going to count to 5, starting here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
2.
3, 4,
5.
1,
2,